Thanks so much for joining us in worship. We've got a great year ahead of us, friends. We're starting the year off with a bang. Again, looking for spiritual insights and truth that would allow us to thrive into our preferred future, into God's best for us in 2025. Let's thrive in 25. Now it's time, right now, this is the time to implement those things that ultimately lead to change. Right now, to begin implementing those things that would lead to fruitfulness, to peace, to perhaps the success that we've been looking for but haven't been able to establish. Now, right now, is our chance to take practical steps towards those things. Now, we're looking at the book, the story of Nehemiah. It's largely about the rebuilding of the walls of Jerusalem after the Babylonian exile. The speed at which the walls were rebuilt, the story around it, these things have lessons that can connect with us as individuals and as a church on how we might thrive today. And as I mentioned in the first sermon of this series, but it's even more important than that, because the Judaism that you and I recognize today, the Judaism that Jesus himself was born into, is essentially established at this point in time among this group of people. And so this story is more than just rock walls. God is actually forming the people, the traditions that we would recognize as Judaism today. Now, lastly, again, as I said at the beginning, we're celebrating 50 years in mission and ministry as a church, but not only celebrating the past, we're looking towards the future. And we're saying, hey, how do we thrive as a church? What you and I decide to do as part of this church today and in the next few years will ultimately determine, I really believe, will ultimately determine what this church does and becomes. And so I'm inviting you into that process to dream with me and think about what we need to do as a church to thrive. Now, I've got our Thrive shirt on today. You've seen others with the Thrive shirts. You can have your own. This is the point in time we want to introduce that. You can see the folks at the welcome desk before you leave. It's obviously got the word Thrive on the top. Underneath is 50 years, Peachtree City United Methodist Church. Then on the sleeve, of course, For Our Neighbors, and established 1974. 50 years ago today was when the church constituted, as it became a duly organized United Methodist Church. But remember, the first public worship service started on August 11th, Sunday, August 11th, 1974. So anyway, get your shirts. You can order through this website. There's different kinds and colors and this sort of thing, and get what you want, and obviously the size you need, all that. But check that out. We invite you to do that. Now, the first sermon of the series, Thrive, was the letter T, taking inventory. And essentially what that means is decide what's most important. Now the idea, the word picture of take inventory is, look, when you decide what's important, you have to take a serious look at everything around you, right? A serious, sober look, really questioning, examining, asking God's help to give you a clear picture and the guts to have an honest answer about what's going on and what really needs to be the most important thing for you right now. We need to do that as individuals. We need to do this as a church. It is the pre-step, the precursor that is absolutely necessary, because otherwise what we end up doing is addressing the symptoms of what has been holding us back, instead of the actual self-imposed problems that have kept us from a preferred future. Any successful transformative process through Christian spirituality is going to involve taking inventory. We may not call it that, but it's a process where, as we read in 2 Corinthians chapter 13, we are examining ourselves. And we're courageously, right? We're not going to worry. We're not going to fear failing the test. We're going to, by God's grace, examine ourselves and really take a hard look at what we need to do. Then and only then can we begin to actually plan how it is that things will go, how we're going to get there. That's today. That's the H on Thrive. And it's have a daily plan. Now with that, a little bit of reverse psychology. You know, if we fail to make a plan, often the problem is that we haven't actually done the work we needed to with taking inventory. We haven't really, because remember, what we talk about, wanting what's most important is not enough. Everybody wants what's important. Taking inventory is about deciding what's important. Do you know there's a specific name for the second Friday of every new year? Do you know what it's called? Quitter's Friday. That's what it's called, Quitter's Friday, because a lot of folks want what's most important, but they haven't done the hard work, the hard emotional and spiritual work of deciding what's most important. And so they haven't come up with a plan. You know, what they've come up with instead is kind of maybe some general ideas about a result that they want, a result that they hope happens, but you know what, that's not enough. When you take inventory, when you seriously think about what needs to be most important and make that decision, it's a process that gives you the ability to see how serious the situation is. It allows you to see what you might expect of yourself and others, the barrage of things that might be against you. And because of that, you start to see and sense and feel various action steps that you're probably going to need to take in order for the change to occur. In other words, the plan starts coming together. Now, as I taught about last Sunday in our biblical story, Nehemiah starts off taking inventory. And if you were here, you remember we read a scripture that was kind of strange. It was kind of odd. Essentially, he goes around the walls of Jerusalem by himself, and he takes a real long, steady look at things. And he doesn't sugarcoat it. He doesn't take other people's word for it, but soberly takes a long look at what it's going to take and what's going to be most important. And from that, Nehemiah develops a daily plan that involves very specific kinds of things that would address the uniqueness of his situation, what the problem is and what needed to be most important right then and there. His daily plan was essentially this. Number one, everybody had a job that they needed to do. He assigned everybody that he had any kind of influence over or authority over, everybody got a job, and everybody had to do that job. And the people who lived in the city, part of what he told them to do is, hey, you have to repair the wall that's closest to your residence, right? That's going to be your responsibility. And then he tells everybody, look, you can't, if you live outside the city, you can't go home, right? We're going to have to live here together, because this work and this is going to be night and day until we get the job done. Everyone has to take turns between building and staying on guard, right? Everybody, he says, has to remember, because it's going to be tough, that God is our strength. Everybody has to remember to rely on the strength of the Lord. And then everybody has to remember that it's not just beliefs and prayer, but action, that belief and prayer is not enough. This is part of what Nehemiah's calling was to do, because they've been here for a long time at this point. And they still had their beliefs. They still had faith. They've been praying. Nehemiah says, it's time to do something. Action must accompany the beliefs and prayer that you have, that God is with you. I love how our scripture reading begins with the phrase, from that day on, right? From that day on. Have a daily plan. I believe that transformation is at the core, at the center of the salvation experience that you and I might have in Jesus Christ. We are changed by life in and with the Holy Spirit, changed for the forever better. However, when it comes to intentional kinds of changes that we feel called to that have to do with the specific things in our life, be it our attitudes or things within our life, the stuff that's deeply woven into our specific circumstances and situations, listen, we got to have a plan. It's not that we don't no longer need to be recipients of God's grace. Of course we do. We constantly need God's grace. It's not that, that we stop being a people of the Spirit. No, we need to be a people of the Spirit. So it's not that we stop thinking about God's power or not relying upon God. It's just that we have to incorporate these things in an actual plan. We have to have a plan. Jesus died to take away our sins, not our minds. So we need practical, time-based action steps. We need a plan. Otherwise, we're just wishing. Any goal that doesn't have a plan is really just a wish. Any goal without a plan is really just a wish. And we can easily fool ourselves into thinking that we have a plan because we have a few thoughts about the end result. But that's just being wishful. You have to develop an actual plan. If your most important thing right now, is time with your granddaughter before she gets married, or your teenager before he leaves to college, if that's your most important thing, or if it's improving your marriage, or if your most important thing is bettering your personal finances, or if your most important thing right now is concentrating on your spiritual growth, or if you've taken inventory, and you know what the most important thing is for you right now? The most important thing is you got to figure out how to get through life without being angry all the time. Whatever it is, I don't know what it is. Whatever you've taken inventory and whatever is the most important thing to you, you're going to have a daily plan, whatever it is. I ended the sermon 2 weeks ago, with the sermon 1, with the question, where are you running out of time? Now, that's not the be-all, end-all question, but it does help our focus. I could ask it in a less poignant way of how are you not going to waste 2025, right? Because 2026 will be here before you know it. And I hate to say that, but that's just part of my job as a shepherd, is to point out hard truths like that. Because whatever the most important thing is for you right now, whatever the most important thing is for you right now, is it your health? Is it finding a calling, not just a career? Is it doing something at the church? Is there a ministry or mission that's really needs to be the most important thing? Is it quality time with a loved one that now has a diagnosis? Listen, whatever your most important thing is right now, whatever it is, you have to figure out how you're going to work at it each and every day. That's the key. Have a daily plan. The daily plan is critical. Our Lord taught us to pray, give us this day our daily bread. Give us this day our daily bread. It's a double emphasis of this day and daily, which is psychologically important. It's sober thinking, it's grounded, and it's incredibly practical. We live into what is most important. We live into what we've decided as most important one day at a time. You can't jump to the end. You can't bypass all that stuff you don't like. Wherever you go, whatever you become, same for individuals, as a church, whatever we do, wherever we go, we get there one day at a time. So we best make each day count. Give us this day our daily bread. The focus is on what we can do today, what happens today, because we can't just warp speed our way to the end goal. It's one day at a time. You ask anybody that's a former addict or a former alcoholic, anybody that's been clean or sober for a year, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 40 years. Do you know what their answer is when you say, how did you do it? You know what they say? One day at a time. Say that with me. One day at a time. So important. Have a daily plan. Now's where I say today's statement of brilliance in the sermon. Okay, here it is. Tomorrow is not today. I know. I should have T-shirts made of that, right? Bumper stickers. I'd probably make a lot of money. I feel like I'm an expert on I'll get there tomorrow. I'll do it tomorrow. And it's not necessarily because I'm lazy, although depending on what we're talking about, maybe that could be true. I'm just really busy. And it's easy to put things off. Some of you are like me. You're really busy. And it's really hard. Now, some of you, maybe you do have a procrastination problem. My middle son, Isaiah, he likes to leave things for future Isaiah. And he'll tell us that. No, that's future Isaiah's problem. That's not my problem. That's future Isaiah's problem. The problem, of course, is that tomorrow has no power. Tomorrow has no strength. Tomorrow has no guts. Tomorrow has no teeth. That's why it's so easy to promise, yeah, I'll get to it tomorrow. I'll do this or that tomorrow. It's easy because tomorrow's a mirage. Today's real. Today is what we have. Now, a little bit of a sidebar here because I am a pastor and I have a pastor's heart. So, sidebar, there are times when you have to take a deep breath and the most spiritual thing you can do is rest, okay? And I want you to hear that, right? There are times where it's like, I've enough, and what I need to do is just be, I need to find balance, right? It's rest. I'm trying to squeeze too much in today, right? So keep that in mind. What this sermon is about is the idea that we have this change that we want in our lives. The change we want in a church, the change, right? Whatever it is that we're after, a preferred future, the thing that's most important to us. There's things that we need to be working towards that each and every day. And the thing is, our tendency is, even though it's that important to us, nonetheless, put those things off, those practical steps to the next day, as if we'll get to it then. And that plan doesn't work. Now, one of the things that I've learned to break out of that cycle, or to help me, is when I get stuck and I know there's really some things I need to be doing today in order to continue to work my personal plan and where I think God's leading me, and I'm like, one of the things that I keep in mind is tomorrow isn't enough either. Now, that's not negative to me, that's actually motivational. Because sometimes in not doing it today, I kind of feel like, well, it'll be better tomorrow, but then I think, listen, if tomorrow's a fabulous day, I'm still not going to reach the goal. It's not like if I wait till tomorrow, it'll be done, right? I mean, how this thing's gonna work is putting days together over and over and over again, okay? So why not go ahead and get started? It might not be all that I wanna do, but if I can just make a little bit of progress today, and then I'll do what I can tomorrow and the next day and so forth. Listen, don't throw away 2025. Don't throw it away. Don't throw away what you're determining is the most important thing for you right now. Because we will. We'll throw it away. Oh, we don't throw it away all at once. We throw it away bit by bit, choice by choice, day by day. Yeah, I want to do this, and I've got this plan. I need to take these steps, and but this happened, and that happened. Hey, listen, friends, the plan may not go perfectly. It may not even go well, but if we keep thinking tomorrow, it doesn't go at all, right? Have a daily plan. Give us this day our daily bread. We live into what's most important one day at a time. Tomorrow has no power. Tomorrow has no depth. Tomorrow has no meaning. Tomorrow has no significance for what I can do today regarding what I've already determined is the most important thing for me. Today is what I have. And so the plan today may not go perfectly. In fact, it may go terribly. But if I keep thinking tomorrow, the plan doesn't go at all. It may be tough, right? I have to tell myself this. Some of the things, the action steps of whatever plan I'm working, right? It hurts. There's sacrifices, there's things that I'm not necessarily, looking forward to. But I have to tell myself, listen, it's only for a time. It's not like the rest of my life's going to be this way. Part of what it means to work any plan, a plan that actually works, working any plan that actually works, means that I have to do some things for a season, for now and each day for a while. And it's like, oh, but that's awful. I don't want to, well, it won't be like this forever, but it has to be like this for now. And that's the way we have to think. In Nehemiah's case, as they were rebuilding the walls of Jerusalem, they were not rebuilding the ideal. The temple was not very glorious looking. It had been rebuilt, but at least it was built. The walls, the gates, the city itself, even after they finished, it wasn't going to be like it was before. But that wasn't what was most important. Nehemiah's calling was, get it done. Just get it done. Returning the city to its glory will be for another person and another time. God was more interested in building his people at this point. And the daily plan was just to get the job done. And they did, fast. But it took doing things differently than they would have done if the plan was something else, if the most important thing was something else. All that list of things that I said that Nehemiah told them to do, that was the plan. And it wasn't comfortable. They didn't like it. But that's what they had to do for a while to get the job done. Now, when it comes to us and celebrating 50 years as a church, one of the things I thought we might want to consider doing for the next 4 weeks, again, I don't want to do a whole campaign or make a big deal out of this, but just for a season, just to the end of this sermon, is I'm wondering about a special offering. As I came to this church, 50 years, it's amazing. And in 50 years, this property and all we have, we're almost out of debt. There's just a small bit of one mortgage that's left. It's $140,000. But it does cost us in the monthly budget, that's about $5,000 each month that it costs us in a cash flow. That, of course, part of that's paying interest and that sort of thing. But just imagine what it would be if we just knocked that out, Imagine the story. Like, there's so many stories that we're talking about in the last 50 years. But what if we started the next 50 with being debt-free? When the church turned 50, it was debt-free. Just think of that. And of course, we would be saving 2 years and 4 months, I think, on interest and again, just the cash flow, reducing the need every month by $5,000, or potentially reallocating that to something else, to making something else grow or work or get better. Just imagine that. And so, we've got some good news. We closed December, and for the first time in 6 years, this church ended the calendar year in the black. Now, just imagine if we can add to that and became debt-free. Just imagine. So if every giving unit, some people are singles and some are households, but if everybody gave $400 extra, we'd have $140,000. Now, some people can't do that, and some people will be more. But, just whatever's on your heart. This is not like twisting arms. It's just an idea. It's just a thought. It's just for a short period of time, right? I wonder if we could do it, I just wonder. We're gonna work hard on the strategy here. I'm ready to work, roll up my sleeves. I'm already busy doing it. I'm excited about the leadership team this year and the staff. I'm excited about what we'll be sharing with you in the future. But my thought is, regardless of what actual plan we come up with, to me, it seems like a good step to just pay off that mortgage. And it would seem like everybody in here probably would agree, that's a good idea. So I encourage you to think about it. It would be a gift above and beyond what you normally give. Like if you wanted to pay off your car or something like that, you can't not pay the water bill, right? You can't do that. So whatever you give would be above and beyond what you normally give. But think about it for a short period of time. All right, as a church, we're going to be, again, working on that daily plan. As individuals, we need to be working on that daily plan. Here's 3 vital ingredients to any plan that works and working any plan: accountability, consistency, and adjustments. That's the 3 ingredients to working any plan and the 3 ingredients to any plan that works. You got to have accountability, okay? It's true for individuals, true for churches. Accountability. Churches need systems that are transparent. Individuals need to be brave enough to tell others about their daily plan. Churches need feedback loops, and individuals need to be open to hearing about those things or hearing from people who care about them, about those things. When we do, we find that all kinds of support and encouragement are there from us, from others, that wouldn't be there if we didn't open up and share. We should not fear accountability. No, it doesn't feel good always, but that doesn't mean that it's not a good thing. And we need consistency, right? We didn't find ourselves in these problems that we have overnight, and so we're not going to get out of them overnight. This is true, again, as individuals or as a church. Anything that will last is going to take some time to build. We just have to keep at it. The key is putting good days together. That's where you start. You have good days and bad days, right? But working that plan, all right, this was a good day, and this was a good day, and this was a good day, pretty soon it's consistent. You have several good days in a row, and then it's a week. You had a whole week that was good. And you keep working and working and working, and then pretty soon you're putting weeks together. And you keep working and working, and then pretty soon it's months. You've put in several good months together. And you keep working on it, and eventually you're putting good years together, and that's how transformation is done. Now, the key word of all of that, accountability, consistency, is the last one, which is adjustments. The plan itself has to be pliable as well as practical. Whatever your daily plan is towards moving towards what you've determined is the most important thing, I think you need 3 versions of it. Life is so unpredictable and messy, and we can be so challenged by what's happening on the inside of us or what's happening around us. We got to have more than one version of our plan. We need plan A, B, and C. When we develop plan A, that's the ideal. That's like, hey, if life was perfect and I could just, this is how I work it, this is what I do every single day to work towards what I've determined is most important. And that's awesome. It's inspiring. It's wonderful. It's exciting. And every great once in a while, you get to work plan A. You actually get to experience that plan. And it's wonderful. But you and I both know that we have to be realistic and draft plan B. And plan B is not so much a backup plan as much as just a reality check that life is so messy, and in all honesty, rarely things go our way, that if A is our ideal, B is what's going to happen most days, right? And if we don't have that, if we only do an ideal plan, the problem with that is that with the way life works, we quit because we can't do our ideal. Or we do part of the ideal plan, and instead of feeling good about it, we feel like failures because we didn't do it all. So you need plan A, ideal, and then plan B, what's real, the more realistic for most days. But then you need one more, you need plan C. You need a third version of the daily plan, and I found this the most helpful with regard to keeping going, because the idea of plan C is everything just went to pot. Everything was terrible, right? It's just awful. But plan C is, what is the least I can do? What's the least, the simplest, littlest thing that I can say, hey, at least I did this. And I'm going to do that every day. Now, unfortunately, my experience is that plan C happens way more than we want it to. All right? But the thing about it is, even if you're at a crawl, over time you'll see progress, and that'll give you hope. That'll keep you motivated to keep going. When this church was started 50 years ago, they broke ground on its first sanctuary over at the Wingate Address. They broke ground on July 10th, 1983. The founding pastor, Bert McDade, he was here for 5.5 years. He was here when they purchased the land over there at Wingate and the Parkway, when they built the first building that you can see in the background there. And then at this point, Clay Jacobs was the church's pastor, and he was here for 8.5 years. And Clay started every sermon with, "What a beautiful day in the neighborhood," he'd say. That's how he started every sermon when he was here. And so Clay was here when they broke ground, built the sanctuary, built the education wing, and this is what they were building. Let's see the drawing. So that's that was the vision. And I love this drawing because you have the original building there and then the sanctuary, but not the educational wing, which came a bit later. Now, this year, the church broke ground 1983, July 10th. A year later, a little bit more, September 23rd, 1984, that's when the sanctuary was consecrated. And at that point, this church had 569 members, receiving the most to date by profession of faith. That is, first time people joined the church for the first time through faith in Christ. 42 people joined the church that way that year, bringing the total of 150 people who had come to profess personal faith in Jesus Christ through joining the church for the first time in their life since the church's founding. The church also took on its largest debt that year with $515,000. It's $1.55 million in today's money. And they did this with an average attendance of 335 people, which is a little bit lower than our average adult attendance right now, a little bit lower than our adult attendance. So, by the way, the annual budget in 1984 was a whopping $99,742. So, a lot of faith there. All that to continue to celebrate our history, but also to point out in a change of plans, because I just said plan A, B, and C. Now, when they built the sanctuary, the church really started growing rapidly. And there was great discussion on what do we need to do, because we're already starting to feel we're out of room, right? What do we need to do? And there was a plan that was developed to build an education wing, but also to expand the sanctuary. And that plan got voted down. And there was great disappointment about that. And without going into details about why that plan was voted down, there's a good chance, though, that if it didn't get voted down, maybe the church didn't fare so well based on the economy and some things that happened in this area. And so even though, even for churches, sometimes it's not plan A. I've read some of the notes on that, and it was like, we're going to do this, and it was for this many people, and it was really exciting, inspiring, and I could just imagine the disappointment when that didn't happen. And yet, ultimately, this is what was built, right? And so if you ever go over the corner of Wingate and the Parkway, you get to see this. In fact, if you look at it from the other side, you get a chance to see the education wing and more of its brilliance. Beautiful, beautiful facility, amazing faith that built this place. All that to say that it's not always plan A, friends. Sometimes it's plan B. Sometimes it's plan C. Now, you still design plan A because that's the ideal, right? Plan A is the ideal. It's what you're shooting for, but plan B is what's real. And plan C is what you can do no matter how you feel, all right? Plan A, the ideal. Plan B, what's real. Plan C is what we'll do no matter how we feel, okay? Let me close with this. If you look at the story of Nehemiah, you see that he made a lot of preparations for a lot of different scenarios about what could happen to him and the people at that time. And the daily plan that he came up with required commitment and sacrifice. It required accountability, consistency, and adjustments, depending on what would happen. The same is true for us. What's also true is how Nehemiah wanted the people to remember that God would fight for them. Your faith and spirituality has to be a big part of your daily plan, regardless of what you've determined is the most important thing. Faith and spirituality need to be a big part of that. And yet at the same time, Nehemiah had to lead the people in understanding that just being spiritual or just having beliefs or even just praying wasn't enough. They had to get to work. And so do we. We have faith, we have beliefs, we should pray, we should remember that God is our strength, but we need a daily plan. What's your daily plan to work towards what you've determined with God's help it needs to be the most important thing right now?